Hello everyone. Okay, so this is a short video to figure out where economics sits in all the body of science. And I have a little sketch pad that I think will help you understand this thing, and it'll give me something to do. So let me get this image off of here, and now I hope you can see that sketch pad. So economics is a social science. So what exactly is a social science? Well, the easiest way to think about it is to make a list of other things. So we have social science. So we already know there's econ in there. But what else? History, psychology, sociology, anthropology. These are all social sciences. And we would contrast them with the natural sciences. So what would that be? Well, natural sciences would be like biology, physics, P-H-Y, chemistry, zoology, and so forth, astronomy, right? The natural sciences. So what really is the difference between the natural sciences and the social sciences? Well, another way of distinguishing them is the natural sciences sometimes are called hard science, and the social sciences are sometimes called soft. Now these words, hard and soft, don't have to do with how difficult they are. They have to do with the nature of the variables that are being studied. So in physics, for example, especially in classical physics, you might talk about the weight of something, or its mass, or its temperature, or its flash point, or its length. So these are all metrics in classical physics, and they are objectively definable. Objectively definable. That means that the way we measure the variable is not controversial. You could get a young person and an old person, or a Republican and a Democrat, or the leaders of North and South Korea, and you could put them in a room, and even though they might try to kill each other, they could agree that a chair has a certain height, or it has a certain temperature, or a certain mass, and so forth, because the variables are objectively definable. But in the social sciences, the variables are subjective. Now, subjective variables means that there is some, well, it's not objective. Subjective would mean that there is some judgment that each person has to make, and we might make different judgments. You and I might disagree on the value of a certain variable in the social sciences. So this is really easy to see in sciences like sociology. If you've ever had a sociology class, you know that they talk about the extended family versus the I forget what they call it, the inner family or something like that. And of course, how you define the extended family is really different, probably in each family, and certainly different with each sociology researcher. So that's what we mean by subjective, that there's some kind of judgment call embedded somewhere in the variable, and two scientists who really have the same goal might see a variable kind of differently. Now the reason this is important in economics is because economics looks a lot like a natural science. In fact, it looks, especially at the doctoral level, it looks a lot like physics. If you think about the variables that we study in economics, there are things like price, income, unemployment rate, and the list just goes on and on and on. GDP, the value of the stock market, and so forth. So the variables that we study in economics look objective, don't they? Income. It looks objective. But I'm arguing that embedded in inside of each one of these variables that we study in economics, there is a subjective component. So I'm just going to use income as my example. I can make a case for each of these variables as subjective component, but let's just do income because it's easy to do. So imagine you had two individuals, and imagine they were both making $75,000. So this is their income. All right? But let's imagine that their jobs are very, very different. Let's say this first person works outside, maybe on the docks down there at the Port of Charleston. So this is a dock worker. And they make $75,000 a year by working long hours. They work outside, rain or shine now. They get Christmas off, but if they choose to work on Christmas, they can get triple time, right? They can't really surf the internet because that would be, shirking their duties on the dock. They'd probably be fired for doing things like that. The work is kind of dangerous, and so forth. Okay, now let's let this other worker who also makes $75,000 a year, let's let that be a college professor. All right. So the IRS computer is going to say that their incomes are the same, right? They both make $75,000. Their incomes are the same. They have to pay the same taxes and so forth. But I'm going to argue that they're really different. The college professor, they have long hours? Well, no, not really. They have shorter hours, maybe, except during exam week, maybe. But they could take their work home. They can grade things at home. It's not really the same as the long hours of the dock worker. It's inside. In fact, we all have offices. Can we surf the web? Well, yeah, I can surf the web. I don't get fired for it. In fact, I do it a lot to try to find examples for class. What about Christmas? Do I get Christmas off? Well, of course I do. I get about 3 weeks at Christmas time. Is my work dangerous? Well, no, not really dangerous. So I hope you get the idea. I'm going to press the point just a little bit farther. You're going to laugh at me, but really, the college professor is a small cog in a great machine making the world a better place. Wouldn't you agree that by training young people to assume leadership positions later in the future, that all those college professors have some small role to play to affect the future of our country and the future of the world, really? So it sounds kind of nerdy to say that, but hey, I believe it, and so that's a benefit to me. So now look at these two workers. Are their incomes the same or not? No, their incomes are not the same. But how different are they? All of these things here, which are all desirable, right? All of these things, what are they really worth? Well, for some person who is a values their free time, their leisure time, maybe a family person, a family man or a family woman, would highly value these 3 weeks at Christmas time and the shorter hours and so forth, and they might place a value on that of, say, $20,000. Maybe. I'm just making that number up. But maybe this person is not a family person. Maybe they're not married and they don't really get along well with other people, and their work is their life, and so they stay over the weekends, hole up in their office preparing their lectures and so forth. So for a person like that, the shorter hours and the 3 weeks Christmas vacation might not be worth $20,000, might only be worth $1,000. So which person is correct? I hope you can see that both people are correct because it is subjective. The value of those things is subjective. Now this problem of the subjective nature of the variables is pervasive in all of the variables that we study in economics, even in price. I don't know how many of you are living on campus, but what does it cost to eat in the caf? Well, a person might say, well, it costs $5 to eat in the caf. $5. And that's true. But it also costs, if you go at noon, especially on a Convo Wednesday or Chapel Wednesday, if you go right after chapel is over, it costs $5 plus a 30-minute wait to get in the door, plus however long you have to wait to be fed, plus however long you have to wait to find a seat, and so forth. So what's the true cost of eating in the caf on, say, Chapel Wednesday? I hope you can see it's considerably more than $5. But on the other hand, if you went on a Friday and you walked in there at 1:30 on a Friday, I'm sure you could walk right in. you pay your $5 and you could eat. So what does all this waiting cost? It is, again, subjective. For some people who are very, very busy and they got other places to go, that waiting is maddening for them and it's very, very expensive. For other people who are more easygoing, maybe you're standing in line with your friends and so forth, the wait doesn't seem so bad. The cost of the waiting is subjective. So, to sum this up, economics is a social science. It's about the study of human behavior, and like all social sciences, the variables that we study in economics are subjective. But unlike other social sciences, economic variables look like, that is, they have the illusion of being objective because they have numbers attached with them. Prices, income, unemployment rate, GDP, and so forth. They all look very, very scientific. And one of the things I hope to do in this class is to give you some insight of the subjective nature of each of those. So as the semester goes by and we talk about each of these variables in detail, hopefully you will come to understand that there's a lot more embedded in the variable than just its number value. Okay, so that's a little summary. Let me find my image again. There I am. So that's a little summary of the nature of economics. It's not in the book, so it could show up on the test, so you should look at this little video, try to understand it a little bit. Might show up, and good luck.